3 weeks earlier, Mrs. Sophie O'Neill attends a high-profile party with her husband, Graham O'Neill, and this is where everything begins to fall apart. The party is hosted by Graham's boss, Jed Banks, a wealthy millionaire who's about to step into politics. To announce his political ambitions, Jed invites the most influential people in town. The place is packed. Loud music. The crowd starts to overwhelm Sophie. She feels a panic attack coming on. Looking for her medication, she walks inside the house. And that's when she meets Margot Banks, Jed Banks' wife. The two women have never met before, but there's something about Margot. The way she talks, the way she carries herself. Sophie can't take her eyes off her, and without realizing it, she feels drawn toward her. Margot wasn't much different. She felt the same pull. As the two couples talked, it came out that Graham was an architect, and he was the one designing Jed Banks' new headquarters. That project was the reason Sophie and Graham had moved to this town 6 months earlier. As the conversation warmed up, Margot invited Sophie to her lake house. Every Friday, she hosted small parties there with her close friends. During this exchange, they met Jill. Jill was a pastor's wife and Margot's closest friend. Jill was in a hurry to leave, but her son Brad was nowhere to be seen at the party. Margot assured her, "He's probably inside the house. Stay here, I'll send him out." When Margot went inside, she found Brad with his girlfriend, Abby. Abby had her eyes closed, murmuring the same words again and again, asking God for forgiveness. She believed physical intimacy was a grave sin, and before crossing that line, she had tried to stop herself. But Brad wasn't backing down. He was completely caught up in the moment. That's when Margot suddenly opened the door and caught them red-handed. Abby panicked and ran out immediately. Brad stayed behind, begging for forgiveness, promising it would never happen again. Margot looked at him and said, "It's better if it never does." Technically, Margot was her mother's closest friend, but Brad turned out to be a real creep. He didn't hesitate to flirt with her either. It was obvious. Something was going on between them. That night, Sophie received a message from Margot. It had the lake house location and all the party details. Sophie wasn't sure if she should go. She hesitated. Graham encouraged her. He told her she should go. The truth was, Sophie had been struggling for over a year. Something from her past kept haunting her. She suffered from panic attacks. A new place, new people. This felt like a chance to step out of it all, to live her life again. The next day, Graham drove her to the lake house himself. Before leaving, he kept reminding her to relax, to enjoy herself, and not overthink everything. After saying goodbye to their only son, Sophie joined the party. She had already met Jill before. Margot introduced her to Monet, Taylor, and Callie. The day turned into pure fun. Everyone was enjoying themselves. They were into shooting and firearms, but Sophie didn't even know how to handle a gun. Using that as an excuse, Margot stepped closer to her, helping her learn. Callie noticed it all, and she wasn't happy. It was clear now. There was a connection between Sophie and Margot. Later that evening, everyone planned to hit a club, but Jill had to leave early to watch her son's practice match. Sophie wanted to go home too. She insisted, but Margot wouldn't let her leave. In the end, they all went to the club, and the night turned wild. Music, drinks, non-stop fun. Meanwhile, Brad's match was going on. His girlfriend Abby was there with her mother. The same Abby we saw earlier with Brad at Margot's house. Brad's mother couldn't stand Abby. She looked down on her because she came from a poor family. Still, in front of Brad, she kept quiet. Back at the club, something strange happens. A one-eyed man keeps staring at Margot, non-stop. Eventually, he walks up to her and tells her about a woman named Mandy, a girl who looks exactly like her. The moment Margot hears this, she snaps. She gets furious and throws him out. Sophie doesn't understand any of it. Why would a stranger say something like that? After a while, Jill returns. The group keeps partying for hours, but it's late now. Finding a taxi turns into a mess. Sophie starts getting anxious, and that's when she meets Jamie. Jamie was actually Brad's friend, the same guy we saw earlier at the practice match. He looks at Sophie and says, "I've seen you before, with Miss Margot. You're her friend, right?" Then he pauses. "You look kind of upset." Sophie tells him the truth. Her husband is angry with her, and on top of that, she can't find a taxi. Jamie sees his chance. He starts flirting. He casually mentions he's 18 and says he could drop her home if she wants. But before the conversation can go any further, Margot and her friends show up. Jamie has no choice. He backs off and leaves. At the same moment, Margot solves Sophie's problem. She offers to drop Sophie home herself. That's when Callie snaps. Normally, Margot always drops Callie home, every time. But tonight, Margot tells her, Monet will take you. Callie is furious. Her jealousy is obvious. And now the question starts to form. Could this jealousy be the reason behind Sophie's death? Was the girl who died in the forest Sophie herself? Whatever the truth is, the moment Callie gets home, she starts digging into Sophie's past. Her husband was the town's sheriff. Sophie's profile did exist in the police database, but her record was sealed. One thing was clear. Sophie had dealt with the police before. She had been connected to a crime at some point. What she had actually done, Callie couldn't find that out. The story cuts back to that same moment in the forest, the night the girl was killed. The next day, a young boy goes hunting with his father. In the bushes, they spot a group of wild pigs. As they move closer, they discover a dead body lying there. This body is found 2 weeks later. By then, Margot and Sophie's friendship is already a week old. Around the same time, Graham's boss, Jed Banks, is pushing hard to win the governor's election. As part of that campaign, a church ceremony is organized to welcome the new families who had recently moved to Texas. During the event, Brad keeps staring at Mrs. Banks, almost too closely, and Abby notices it, watching her with suspicion. Jill's husband was the church pastor. That part we already know. But Jill herself was deeply involved too. She worked to bring people closer to religion. She ran multiple church groups. And honestly, they were strange people. Think about it. The same woman who partied all night long was also the one lecturing other women about sin and morality. At the same time, the one-eyed man who had been obsessing over Margot had broken into her lake house. He searched the entire place, room by room. But whatever he was looking for, he didn't find it. In the end, he calmly used the bathroom and slipped out without leaving a trace. That night, we're introduced to a Christian preacher, a man who had given up worldly life at a young age. Teenagers were drawn to him. They admired him. Abby was his biggest follower. It was this preacher, Pete, who planted a belief deep inside Abby's mind that having physical relations before marriage was a sin. Abby followed his teachings religiously, and because of that, Brad was constantly frustrated with her. The next morning, college students are out doing a car wash to raise funds. The O'Neill family happens to pass by that same road. Jamie steps in and stops them. He explains they're raising money through the car wash. Graham agrees to get the car cleaned, but he gives a clear warning. Make sure nothing happens to the car. Jamie looks straight at Sophie and says, "Don't worry, sir. I'll take very good care of your car." Sophie is stunned. Her mouth literally drops open, but Graham misunderstands it. He thinks Jamie is talking about the car. The Banks family is also part of this fundraiser. Ever since Jed decided to run for office, Margot's anxiety has been growing. She's scared. Scared that if their real past comes out, everything could collapse. Margot and Jed had crossed lines before. They had partied and fooled around with other women. And now that politics was involved, the opposition wouldn't hesitate to dig up dirt and destroy them. On top of that, Margot's own background wasn't clean either. The life she came from, the world she once lived in. If all of that surfaced, it could turn into a serious problem. Jed Banks, however, wasn't willing to back down. Not anymore. And that fear pushed Margot to meet her own brother, Kyle. Margot came from a very poor background, a life she had worked hard to escape. She hands Kyle a bag full of cash, tells him to quit theft and robberies for good, and to disappear completely. Because if Kyle got into trouble before the election, Margot's past could come crashing out into the open. Kyle agrees, but before leaving, he makes sure to cut deep. He tells her, "You may have spread your legs and climbed your way to the top, but you'll always be Mandy from Alba, Texas. No matter what you do, our dirty blood will never stop chasing us." After settling things with Kyle, Margot goes to meet Callie. The moment they see each other, the tension explodes. But this meeting is different. This is the last one. Margot is there to end everything. For good. Jed has no idea about their illegal relationship. He knows nothing. But Margot is scared. That one-eyed man, the one constantly watching them. What if he's connected to the opposition party? If the truth comes out, Jed's image will be destroyed. The election will be lost. And when that happens, Jed won't blame himself. He'll take it all out on Margot. Margot couldn't afford to lose this luxurious life. Not under any circumstances. The election had turned into a nightmare for her. In the end, Callie understands her situation and agrees to end the relationship. On the other side, we see Jill. She's extremely happy with Brad's fundraiser work. She takes care of everything, his diet, his routine, every little detail. She loves him so deeply that she'd go to any length for him. Before leaving, Brad tells her he'll be staying at Jamie's place that night. But that's a lie. In reality, he's planning to spend time with Abby. And Abby has finally convinced herself that two people getting close isn't a sin. In her mind, God created love so that two people could come together. So how could something created by God be wrong? Just then, Brad receives a message from Miss Margot. She wants him to come over to train Jed's sons in basketball. Sophie and Margot were growing closer with each passing day. But because of the election, Margot was keeping herself under control. Sophie, on the other hand, was losing it. She couldn't stop thinking about Margot. Slowly, she was losing control of herself. Callie wasn't doing any better either. There was something about Margot, an unsettling charm, a pull that drew everyone toward her. The next morning, Sophie goes to the market, and there she sees him again, the one-eyed man. The moment Sophie notices him, she panics. She tries to walk away, fast. While leaving, she calls Margot, but Margot is already heading to the lake house for something urgent. She only says, "I'll call you later," and hangs up. That's when the one-eyed man stops Sophie. He tells her the Banks family isn't what it seems, and that he wants to talk openly about it. Sophie agrees to listen, but the second she gets the chance, she takes off. She doesn't trust him at all. In her mind, this man could easily be a spy, someone sent to poison her thoughts, lying to her, manipulating her, all to turn her against the Banks family. On the other side, we're introduced to Jed's ex-wife, Maya, for the first time. Jed's children live with her, the same kids Margot had mentioned when she messaged Brad about basketball training. Trying to get to the truth, Abby casually asks Maya how the kids' basketball training went. Maya laughs, because those two kids have never played a sport in their lives. Video games are all they know. That only deepens Abby's suspicion. She already doubted Brad and Margot, but she still didn't have proof. Meanwhile, Margot had invited Brad to the lake house for a reason. She was now certain someone had broken in while she was gone. There were clear signs in the bathroom. Someone had been there. With the election approaching, Margot was already paranoid. She tells Brad that the opposition might be spying on her. Brad insists he never comes to the lake house when Margot isn't around, which means only one thing. Someone else had been inside. Realizing what this could turn into, Margot looks at Brad and asks him directly, "Tell me one thing. Who all have you told about us?" Brad says no one. He hasn't told a single person. All he ever did was stare at her, and maybe that alone made people suspicious. Margot doesn't sugarcoat it. She tells him this has to stop. Completely. If it doesn't, they'll both be ruined. Publicly, she makes it clear. They can still meet, but this relationship must stay secret. Meanwhile, after pushing her husband for a long time, Callie finally manages to access Sophie's crime history. What she discovers shocks her. Sophie had been involved in something serious in the past. Something big. Callie can't believe it. On the other side, after escaping the one-eyed man, Sophie heads straight to the lake house, and there she sees it. Margot, with Brad. Margot notices Sophie too. Their eyes meet, but instead of looking away, Margot keeps looking at her, softly, affectionately. Brad, however, has no idea what's going on between them. This is where the story jumps 6 months back. Back then, a teenage girl named Casey Crummell suddenly went missing. The search was still going on when screams were heard coming from an old cabin in the woods. Detective Wanda believed it might be Casey. She called for backup, but she couldn't wait for it to arrive. She went in alone, and that decision cost her everything. Wanda ended up in the kidnapper's hands. Now the story cuts back to the present. We see Jill. She's out on her new boat with Monet. When Jill steps inside the cabin and looks at the bed, she understands everything. It's obvious. Brad had lied about staying at Jamie's place. He had brought his girlfriend here instead. Abby had been coming to their house for a while, and Jill never really objected to them spending time together. There was only one fear on her mind. What if Abby got pregnant? That would trap Brad for life. Meanwhile, Brad has already dropped Abby home. Before he leaves, Abby confronts him. She asks why he lied about training Jed's sons in basketball, and who he really went to meet that night. That question sparks an argument, a serious one. Abby forcefully grabs his phone and checks it. That's when she sees the Signal app, an app used for secret messaging. During the struggle, the phone slips from Brad's hand and crashes to the floor, shattered. Abby immediately apologizes, but Brad explodes. He yells at her and throws her out of the house. All of this is witnessed by Abby's mother, Miss Starr. Starr steps in and tries to reason with her daughter. She tells Abby, "If a man doesn't value you, you should walk away." She's speaking from experience. Back in high school, she fell in love with Abby's father. They got married. But a few years later, the marriage fell apart. Abby refuses to listen. She fires back, "This is nothing like your story. He loves me. And why should I take advice from you? You can't even afford to buy yourself a pair of shoes." That's when Star gets up and walks away. Meanwhile, the moment Brad gets home, he tells his mother his phone is broken and that he needs a new one. It turns out Brad was also supposed to attend a party that Friday night at his school friend Jem's house. The moment Jill hears this, she snaps. She knows exactly what he's planning. Using the party as an excuse to meet Abby, she forbids him from leaving the house. Meanwhile, ever since Sophie saw Brad with Margot, she's been avoiding Margot completely, ignoring her calls, ignoring her messages. In the end, Margot has no choice. She comes to see Sophie herself. After taking permission from Sophie's husband, Margot takes her to the lake house. Margot is nervous. If Jill finds out about this, things could spiral fast. Sophie reassures her. She promises to keep everything to herself. Margot can live her life however she wants. Sophie says she has no problem with that. While they're talking, Monet and Callie show up. They bring up a plan. Next Friday, they're going hunting. Margot is always ready for a hunt. And this time, Sophie agrees too. There's just one problem. Sophie doesn't own a gun. So the first thing they do is head out to buy one for her. In Texas, owning a registered gun was legal, and almost everyone carried one. Seeing the others with pistols, Sophie bought one too, along with a rifle. She couldn't take the larger gun home, so she left the rifle at Margot's place and took the pistol with her. She hid it inside her closet, then informed Graham, and the next day she went out hunting with the group. During the hunt, they killed a wild boar, took tons of selfies. That same day, Sophie learned how to reload a pistol and how to shoot it properly. Later, while joking around, they started a game. One by one, each person had to say something they had never done in their life. If someone else in the group had done that thing, they had to admit it. People confessed to all kinds of crazy stuff, one after another, until Callie spoke. She said she had never killed anyone. The moment she said it, Sophie froze. It was obvious. Callie had aimed that directly at her. She already knew the truth. Her husband had told her everything. Cornered, shaking, even through tears, Sophie finally confessed. Sophie finally tells them the truth. 2 years earlier, a girl had died because of her. Sophie was drunk, completely intoxicated, and the accident was entirely her fault. She had killed that girl. Graham used his influence to bury the case. He pulled strings and saved Sophie from punishment. But Sophie was never able to forgive herself. The faces of the victim's family haunted her constantly. That guilt slowly pushed her into depression. She began suffering from panic attacks. Seeing this, Margot snaps at Callie. She understands it immediately. Callie had used her husband to dig into Sophie's past. As Sophie breaks down, the others start feeling sympathy for her. But Margot cuts it short. She tells everyone to leave, everyone except Sophie. Callie's plan was clear. She wanted Margot to stay away from Sophie, but it backfires completely. That night, Margot doesn't let Sophie go home. She has something special planned for her. Now the scene shifts to Abby. Nighttime. Abby is supposed to go to Jem's house for a party with Brad. Brad was meant to pick her up, but after their fight, there's no call, no message. Abby assumes his phone probably died after it broke. She waits and waits, but Brad never shows up. Left with no option, Abby calls Pastor Pete and asks him to drop her at Jem's place. Apart from Brad, Pete is the only person she truly connects with. Pete notices she's upset and asks what's wrong, but Abby refuses to talk. That's when Pete says something unsettling. He tells her he already knows everything, that Brad has told him the whole truth. Meanwhile, Brad receives a message on Signal. It's from Margot. Moments later, Brad and Jamie arrive at the lake house together. Sophie is shocked when she sees them. This was the surprise. Margot's surprise. She just wanted Sophie to feel better, to feel free. No pressure, no expectations. Whatever Sophie wanted to do, Margot wanted her to choose it herself. There was something about Sophie, an unsettling pull, something that turned Margot on. That's why Sophie always mattered more to her than anyone else. Meanwhile, Star had ordered new shoes for Abby. She goes to Abby's room to tell her, but Abby is already gone. She's left for Jem's party. In fact, she's already there. What Pete said to Abby on the drive, we don't fully know. But one thing is clear. Abby gets out of the car angry. So angry that she even leaves her sweater behind. Right now, she only wants one thing, to talk to Brad. At the party, Abby asks Jems and Nina where Brad is, and that's when she finds out Brad never showed up. The truth is, at that very moment, Brad is busy fooling around with Miss Margot. Then something else happens. The entire town loses power. Blackout. Abby's anxiety spikes. She keeps calling Brad again and again, desperate to know how much of what Brad told Pete was actually true. Meanwhile, Brad's mother, Jill, already anxious, calls Abby to find out where Brad is. Angry and frustrated, Abby snaps back. "You should know who your son is fooling around with right now. He's not with me. You've spoiled him too much, Mum. Now I'm the one who'll have to set him straight." That sets Jill off immediately. "I'm his mother. I know exactly how to protect my son from every bad influence." As they argue, Jill picks up on the background noise. It sounds like water, music, and suddenly she understands. They might be partying at the lake. Without wasting a second, Jill heads out to check on them herself. Back at the lake house, things have gone much further. After swimming in the pool, everyone agrees to play a game. Spin the bottle. The rules are simple. Whoever the bottle points to has to kiss. The game stays playful at first, but then the bottle stops. Right between Sophie and Margot. They were already drawn to each other. The attraction had been there all along. Now they had an excuse. And in the heat of the moment, what started as a game goes a little further than anyone expected. However, Sophie somehow manages to pull herself back. She controls her urges. She even tells Jamie that none of this feels right to her. Meanwhile, on the highway near the lake, we see Pete. He's alone in his car, staring at Abby's photo. It tells you everything about the kind of man he really is. A so-called holy man. Someone who claimed to have renounced worldly desires, who preached morality to others. Yet inside, he was completely consumed by his obsession with Abby. So much so that he deliberately told Abby the truth about Brad and Margot. Not to protect her, but to turn her against Brad. To create a rift between them. And it worked. That's why Abby was now restless, desperately searching for Brad. Back at the lake house, after Spin the Bottle, the drinking continues. Hard. So hard that before long, Sophie's vision starts to blur. Everything fades. The next morning, she wakes up on the shore of the lake. But the last thing she remembers, she was inside the house. How she got there? What happened after she passed out? She has no memory of any of it. Meanwhile, Sophie's husband is losing it. He's already called her 5 times. When Sophie finally gets inside the lake house, everyone is gone. No one's there. She leaves soon after and starts heading back home. On the way, she notices a police cruiser. What Sophie doesn't know is this. The father and son who had gone hunting had already called the police. They reported finding a girl's body in the woods. The moment the call comes in, Detective Wanda rushes to the scene. Her first thought is Casey Crummell, the teenage girl who disappeared 6 months ago. Back then, while trying to save Casey, Wanda had been shot in the head. The bullet grazed her skull and passed through. That's the only reason she survived. She's still officially on medical leave, but her fellow officer Flynn allows her to take a look at the crime scene. And that's when the truth comes out. The dead girl isn't Casey. Her name is Abby Jackson. At first, they assume wild pigs attacked her. Her body has bite marks, but it only takes Wanda a few seconds. She looks closer and realizes the truth. Abby wasn't mauled to death. She was shot. About 100 meters away from the body, the police find a wallet. That changes everything. The moment murder becomes a possibility, they call in the forensic team. Now the hunt begins. They are looking for the person who killed Abby. Meanwhile, Sophie reaches home. The first thing she does is rush to hide the pistol. She empties her entire bag, checks every pocket, but the gun is gone, missing. And trust me, the trap being set to frame Sophie is so massive, it'll leave you stunned. I'll be bringing the final part very soon.